Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. I am joined by legendary Pete from Nets Fans You Know, who's going to be joining me to discuss the Nets' big win over the Washington Wizards last night in at the Barclays Center. Lots of good stuff from the Brooklyn Nets yesterday. I feel like everything you wanted to see, you saw at least in small doses. So that was encouraging. Let me turn it over to my, Pete today. Pete from Nets Fans, you know. Pete, introduce yourself and just kind of give me your opening thoughts on what you saw yesterday from our Nets. Pete, you're muted. Pete, you're muted. All right, well, we figured that out. Let me tell you.
No, I got it. I'm a professional here, bro. You just call me legendary, and then so like you just said, my name is Pete. I'm the host of Net Fans You Know, a Brooklyn Nets podcast. I've had on former players, credentialed media, and pretty much anyone around Nets lore. I also cover the Nets as a writer for Off the Ball Network, and yeah, man, great game by the Nets. It's so hard to look at this team and imagine having Jody Fernandez as the coach last year, just from an effort. It's just the scheme is different. The effort is different. Everything is just so different. You could say the talent is a lot less, but compared to last year's team. But I was just impressed by seeing Ben Simmons go to the hole. I think he took the first 3 shots for the Nets, actually getting to the hole, actually taking contact, not looking scared. Couple good performances by CT. I think how many players scored in 10 points? The minutes are being broken up. But overall, we can't get too excited. It is preseason, right? Wizards are obviously going to be very bad. They may be worse than us. But yeah, that was my overall take on it. I think the whole energy around the team is the biggest standout for me if I had to pick out something.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just to answer your question, I believe there were 7 Nets who had double figures, and Zaire had Tyrese Martin and Jaylen Martin both had 9. So they had Cam Johnson with 11, Ben Simmons with 11, Schroeder with 13, Cam Thomas with 17, Clowney 11, Jalen Wilson 14, Shake Milton 16, and then Tyrese and Jaylen Martin both had 9. So you can see that they spread the ball around. Everyone got involved, which is really encouraging because if there was kind of like one thing that I was worried about is like, okay, after Cam Thomas, who scores the points, right? Like, who's going to be the second leading scorer on this team? And kind of what they showed you yesterday is that they can piece it together, that there are multiple guys who can put the ball in the hole. I was impressed with Shake Milton. Again, like Pete said, this is the preseason, and it is the Wizards, so it's like the perfect combination of things to look good in. But, like, it was encouraging. The energy was good. There was multiple guys who could score the ball. I thought the defense outside of the first few minutes of the game was very good. There's a lot to like. Like everything that you wanted to see as a Nets fan, you saw there. I want to ask you this question first, Pete. The starting lineup yesterday with no Claxton and no Day'Ron Sharpe, so no true big. They went with Ben Simmons, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Thomas, and Schroeder. So kind of using Ben Simmons in a point center role. What's your thought on that starting 5? Given that Claxton and Sharpe are out.
I think it's a real issue because you have Ben Simmons playing in the role that you just said. I did a whole episode based on what I thought the Nets offense was going to be this year, focusing on the whole point series that Jordy runs. And man, looking at everything you'd want out of like a point forward, quote unquote, Ben Simmons is it. And listen, he might be a better fit for the offense running that point forward position, but better than Clax, better than anyone else on the team. Or it's not even close, really. So I think it's actually an issue going forward in that when Clax comes back, because he is coming back and he is going to start, who is going to be getting, who's going to be pulled out? And can you play Ben together with Clax? Am I answering your question? Go back to your question. I want to make sure I answer.
That's exactly what I was asking. That That's exactly the question that I asked. So, like, you posed an interesting question. Are you going to play Simmons and Clax together? I think the answer is you got to try it again. Like, Jordy, this is a new system. This isn't Jacques, right? So, I mean, I think you got to give it a shot. You know, it's the coach's job to get the 5 best players on the team to work together. Simmons and Claxton are clearly 2 of your 5 best players. So you do want to get them on the court together. It's not going to be easy because you can't stretch with either of them. Neither of them can shoot. They both kind of want to be in the dunker spot after Simmons kind of runs the point. But yeah, to answer your question, I think you have to try it. Who comes out? And I wanted to touch on this, so I want your thoughts on it. I love Dorian Finney-Smith. I thought he was excellent yesterday. He was hitting open shots. He was rebounding. There's no lack of energy in him on this. You know, I like the DFS. Is this a guy that's going to kind of lollygag through the season because he's too good to be here? He's a veteran that doesn't want to be. There's not. He was high energy yesterday. He was hitting the glass. I say all that to say is, can we do this guy a favor and can we trade him? It'll open up minutes for other guys in our team, and it would be doing the right thing by him. We've traded Kevin Durant and James Harden when they wanted to be traded. Can we trade Finney-Smith for Finney-Smith's sake? Okay.
You know, you make an interesting point with that. I don't think he's going to lollygag for the season because, let's face it, this is an audition for playoff teams, for contending teams. You know, if they're going to give up something for Dorian Finney-Smith, they want to see that the guy is playing well. And he's played probably his best basketball as a Brooklyn Net these last, 2 preseason games. Obviously, once again, it is preseason. But, man, I love what I'm seeing out of the guy. I don't know what that's going to look like when the season starts. But I would definitely put him above of CJ right now. What do you think about that?
No, if it comes down to starting one of them, Dorian Finney-Smith or Cam Johnson, I'm absolutely starting Dorian Finney-Smith. Dorian Finney-Smith gives you so much more, especially when he's hitting his shots. When he's hitting his shots, he does everything on the court as good or better than Cam Johnson. He's a more versatile defender. He's a better rebounder. He's a better finisher. He's a more physical player. He's just better. I'm not trying to come off as a Cam Johnson hater, but I'm not a Cam Johnson fan, to be honest. But yeah, I'm playing DFS over Cam Johnson every day of the week, and especially in closing time. The other guy I would take off the court was possibly Schroeder, but then you really at a deficit of guys who can create their own shot. Like, I feel like I wanted to come up with as many possibilities. I want to come up with as many lineups and rotations that have Cam and Schroeder on the court together. Obviously, that's going to be a defensive issue because neither of them really defend their position well. But offensively, I feel like you got to have Cam and Schroeder on the court as much as possible. What are your thoughts on
that? I think you need at least one of them on the court at all times. And it's going to be very interesting. Let's say we have a lineup of Simmons, Schroeder, CT, and then Clax, and then another player, right? Where you want to make it, CJ or Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, Ben brings so much that I know we're talking about Schroeder right now, right? But because Ben has been playing so well, it almost affects my thinking of how I deploy Schroeder, right? Schroeder goes downhill. We don't always see Ben Simmons going downhill. Obviously, yesterday that was a change. We're going to have to see a lot more of that before we get comfortable saying Ben Simmons is going to go downhill. But that going downhill, like speed or whatever, is super important to the Nets offense, and it really cannot be replaced. Man, it's really a tough question. I don't love the idea of having CT and Schroeder in the starting backcourt to begin with, but Schroeder just brings so much, man. It's really a difficult question.
The other thing, I wanted to circle back to Ben Simmons real quick, because you got to like what you saw from Ben Simmons to start the game. He was aggressive. He was taking the ball the hole. He scored, which I wasn't even expecting him to score. If you get any point out of him, to me, that's a huge bonus. But what would you make of that early resurgence out of Ben Simmons in the first few minutes of the game, just to start the game?
He looked comfortable. He didn't look. That's the biggest key. He looked comfortable, and in my head, I was just, we're making this up, obviously. If you could imagine like a cartoon where the bubble cloud goes above, the main character's head, and he starts thinking. I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, man, if this guy actually can do something like this in the regular season, not even every game, but like 3/4 of the games that he plays in 13 minutes, 5 of 7 from the field, made 1 free throw, 1 of 2 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 11 points. That's that's really good, man. That is really, really good. At that point, I think you have to start him. And man, it just sucks. Like, where was this Ben Simmons like 2 years ago? Or even last year?
Well, I mean, I don't want to state the obvious, but it's his walk year. It's his contract year. When was the last time Ben Simmons played well? His contract year with Philly.
5-6 years ago, I would say. Yeah.
That was the year that he signed his big contract. I'm not saying that this guy is motivated by money, but he's clearly motivated by money. And
I disagree. I really do believe it's the surgery thing. Back injuries are very crazy, but I don't blame you for saying that, though. I don't.
So I want to ask you, because I just did a video on this. You can check it out. I have a little bit different take on this. And I'm not saying Ben Simmons was faking his injuries. I'm saying like maybe he could have played a little more. Maybe he could have pushed it. What are your thoughts on Ben Simmons, the severity of his injuries? Is he dedicated to basketball? Is this legitimate? Like he really can't play, or is it like he doesn't want to, and this was an excuse not to play? Well, what's your kind of instincts on that?
I think the guy wanted to play. I don't think he has shown the killer instinct thing. If anyone has ever had a back surgery, it is I can't even say debilitating or whatever the word is.
Debilitating.
It is,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're stuck in bed. You can't run. Some people can't bend. Then we heard the stories a couple years ago of him, going to the Nets practice facility or games, and he's laying in the back of a car, like he can't even, sit up straight. I say that, how could you expect him to play basketball in that case? But one thing that the Nets did bad by him is allowing him to come back, because he was not ready after the Harden trade. He was not ready, having a surgery, then having training camp. I think it was like 2 months later. The guy wasn't ready. This might be the first time that he's ready. The timing sucks. The timing is horrible. But I say all this to say, I think there is a killer instinct missing there. But I think he's fueled by a couple other things. I think money obviously has to be a motivator. I think he wants to win. I think the contract year is a motivation, but I think he's just tired of hearing like his name just dragged through the mud consistently. People calling him like a bitch. Like it's real. The hate is real.
I agree with you. It's real. I don't think it's unwarranted. He had the incident, I guess, his first year here in 2022, where they were asking him if you're going to play in the Celtics series, and he left the chat. I mean, he sat out that entire season with Philly, right? It was a holdout, and he hasn't played since. And maybe I'm not his doctor. I'm not in his body. I don't know how his back feels. I'm not going to come out here and say he's faking injuries, but it seems a lot like the dog ate my homework. I remember he got poked in the eye, and the next thing his knee hurts. It seems to me like you're an NBA player. You're always dealing with some type of injury, something hampering you. Like you can get out of the game.
Run, bro. If your back hurts, you can't even run. You can't.
I agree.
It's a little tough, right?
I'm not accusing him of faking the injury. I'm just saying I wonder if he was only getting paid to play, right? Like if he wasn't getting paid to sit out, if he had to play to get paid, would he be playing? Like that's kind of my question. That's kind of my question with him.
And I throw it back to you to say this. Do you think he rushed himself to come back to play with KD and Kyrie? I think he did. And I think he worsened his injury. He made his injury a lot worse. He should have rehabbed, but he heard all the outside noise. You have Kevin Durant in front of you, like, bro, we need you. You're not even going to try. So the dude does try, and then this is what happens. So, I don't put all the blame on him, but I understand all the hate going his way. And it, like you said, it is warranted. It is warranted up to a point. I don't, and maybe you shouldn't get credit for trying, but I give the guy respect for going about it and trying his best. I don't think he wants to get all this hate. I think he wants to make money, and I think he wants to win. But I definitely think that there is, like I said, not a killer instinct there, that when you see guys, this is not everybody that does this, but like a Jimmy Butler type of player that has a surgery and he attacks the rehab. I don't know how much he attacked Ben Simmons attacked his rehab. Maybe he didn't. We don't know. But I think that's a part that people don't talk about.
There's something else. Simmons, I've never knocked Simmons as a player. I know a lot of people have. Defensively, he's not the same what he used to be, and he can't score. I think Ben Simmons, healthy, is a tremendous player. I think he's a high impact player who makes you better. I think defensively, he's a unicorn. I think he has a lot of value when he's healthy. I think he's a very good player when he's on the court. Kind of, if Ben Simmons is playing this year, let's say Ben Simmons stays healthy and he plays 60 games or more this year. I laid this out yesterday on a different podcast. I said, I think he's more impactful. He impacts winning more than Mikal Bridges. What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, that's a good question. Say it again. If Ben Simmons affects
if Ben Simmons is
more,
healthy, if Ben Simmons plays 60 games plus this year and he's healthy and he's playing 30 minutes a game, that he impacts winning more than Mikal Bridges does for the Nets.
Referring to Mikal Bridges on the Knicks this year?
No,
Bridges on the Nets he did last year.
What he did last year for the Nets.
Considering that the games that he did play early on in the year and the Nets were kind of winning, I would say I think Ben Simmons, you could say what you're going to say, but the Nets are a better team when Ben Simmons is at like 80% compared to no Ben Simmons. They are a better team. He doesn't put up the winning, quote-unquote, stats that a lot of people want to see, but the matter of the fact is that he does contribute to winning. He does.
And especially with what he offers you defensively. In today's NBA, with the high pick and roll and the ball movement the way it is, being able to switch defensively, being able to guard multiple positions is one of the most important skills you can have. To me, it's the second most important skill you can have in today's NBA behind only shooting. And what the Nets have in guys like Zaire Williams, Noah Clowney, Claxton, and Ben Simmons, I think is unique, or maybe one or two other teams have something similar, and those are elite teams. Those bigs that can defend multiple positions, those four names, how much of an advantage and how beneficial is that for the Nets to have guys 6'9", 6'10", or bigger that can defend multiple positions and can switch and can guard wings and can guard bigs? How important is that, and how vital is that for the Nets?
Oh, that's humongous. That's humongous. I think you could even say, I know you asked me defensively, but I could even say offensively as well. The stuff that he brings to the team is not something that I don't think anybody else as a complete package brings. The defense guarding 1 through 5, the rebounding, the being able to push the ball up, the passing, playing in Jordy's offense. He's the key to Jordy's offense. If we're being 100% honest, especially when Clax is out and we don't know what he could possibly bring, Clax is a humongous key to this team that I think he could bring them an extra like 5 wins. Maybe even if he's healthy and is playing good minutes, maybe even like 8 wins added onto their season, depending like how he's used and the minutes and whatnot.
The other thing I wanted to, first let me pose this question to you, because I got some thoughts on this. Pleasant surprises. What did you see yesterday that pleasantly surprised you that you maybe weren't expecting? Because there were 2 guys who really stood out to me. I want to see if we mesh on this. So we didn't talk about this backstage. What surprised you in a positive sense yesterday?
That's a tough question. Positively, can I say surprised in general?
Yeah, sure.
I was a little disappointed in that gets a positive and a negative. I'm disappointed in Zaire Williams' 3-point shooting. I think he's like 1 of 7 or maybe even 0 for 7 or something like that in the preseason so far. He was 0 4 last night, but I was very surprised that he winds up grabbing 7 rebounds in I think in like 20 minutes or something like that. Shoots 3 or 4 from the free throw line. I think he had 3 assists, something like that. I have that as both a positive and negative. I love that his game is a little bit deeper than I anticipated. I hate that the 3-point shooting has been a little bit down for him because let's be honest, that's kind of like the knock on him. The shooting is going to be an issue. Another surprise to me. I hate being. I guess I'll give you a positive and a negative again. I love that Schroeder is just killing it so far. He had a 7 assists last night. I think he was 4 of 8, 13 points. He even had a block. Schroeder's play is surprising me. I didn't think he was going to be able to pass the ball the way that he's been passing it so far. But a negative that really disappointed me are the low minutes out of Whitehead, Bailey, and Sway. I would like to see them get a little bit more minutes.
I want to get to that. I'm going to get to that because I have that on my notes. I wanted to see those guys play more minutes. But
I'm going to give you one more positive very quickly.
Go ahead.
I've been saying this for about a couple of weeks already. Shake Milton, man. Whoa. Yeah. He's going to be like, there's a little, for people who aren't like following along, he's making $2.8 million this year, guaranteed. And then the next 2 seasons, he's making around $3 million, and they're not guaranteed. If the Nets could carve out a little role for him, like 10, 15 minutes a game, and he puts up, like 5, 6, 7, 8 points, major steal for the Nets.
That was one of my surprises was how much game Shake Milton has. He's strong. He can finish. Like Shake Milton looked really, really impressive. That was really, really good to see. And then the other surprise to me was Tyrese Martin. Tyrese Martin showed that he belongs. He was a guy that I figured had no shot of making the team, but he was hustling. He was finishing. He grabbed some rebounds. I was really, really impressed with what I saw from Tyrese Martin yesterday. That was a guy I just thought he was a body here. Like I thought he had no shot of actually making the roster. But Tyrese Martin looked like he belonged yesterday. He showed me something yesterday. And I wanted to see more of that. And that kind of leads me to the next point that you made. Yeah, the 3 guys I wanted to see, Jackie Sway, Ace Bailey, they didn't get into the last Ace Bailey. I'm sorry, Amari Bailey. I do want to see Ace Bailey. Amari Bailey. I do want to see Ace Bailey too. Amari, they didn't get in until the last 5 or 6 minutes of a 30-point blowout. And I'm not trying to criticize Jordy. It's tough to get all these guys minutes, but you would agree that those guys that are kind of fighting for their life here, they're on the chopping block. Those guys need to see more minutes, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Giving you a little inside info that I haven't even used on my pod yet. It's looking more and more like Jackie Sway and Amari Bailey are going to be more of Long Island guys and more of a long-term project sort of thing rather than someone who has a chance to make the last roster spot. So I guess that's why we're seeing that. But I am disappointed that we're not seeing them play. Dariq Whitehead, really surprising. I know he's coming back from the surgery. I get it. But I'd like to see a little bit more of these guys.
Dariq Whitehead was able to hit the corner 3, which was a good sign. He could not do that in the summer league for sure. So Dariq Whitehead showed me some form of life yesterday. And Buzz is right. He was telling me about Tyrese Martin. I thought Tyrese Martin looked really good, so I want to give him a shout out. But as far as Amari Bailey, you're saying that he's going to be in Long Island, and
probably.
All right. Yeah. To me, that's a guy with tremendous upside. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star or he should start or anything like that. I'm simply looking at a guy like that who can play the 1 and the 2. He has a good body. He's all-world athlete above the rim with a really good mid-range game. If he can just develop a corner 3 to the point where you have to respect it, you have to defend it. To me, that's a guy that can have a really good NBA career. That's a guy that can go average 15 points a game off the bench, and he can play the 1 or the 2, so he fills multiple positions. He can defend, he can rebound well for his position due to his athleticism. I'm really, really high on Amari Bailey. So, like, a two-part question. I'm guessing you don't see him making this roster. And B, do you see any of the upside that I see in him?
Oh, absolutely. I see the upside for sure. I think there's a reason why he was drafted 41st overall a year ago or a year or two ago, whatever it was, right? And the Nets I thought it was a tremendous signing by the Nets to jump on top of that before anybody else did. But yeah, as far as making the roster, I think there's a 0.0 chance that he makes the roster unless we're hit by a hurricane that dismantles the roster entirely or something, something of that magnitude, God forbid. And listen, what is he, like 19, 20 years old? He's still a young guy.
10th youngest guy in the NBA last year.
There you go.
He's really, really young. He should have went back to college.
Yeah.
I think the issues with him are more off the court. His mom's an interesting character. He wanted to go to the NBA and forgo his sophomore year of college to dunk on John Morant. It's like, okay, guy, let's put this. Yeah, let's.
Gary. We got to talk about his draft day outfit of not wearing a shirt underneath the suit. I always bring that up. Very bad sign. Major red flag there, for sure.
But the issues I see with him off the court. On the court, he does a little bit of everything. I really, really like his game, and I really think he has upside. Ideally, he probably should have went back to college for one more year because he didn't really come on at UCLA until the tournament and later in the season, which tells me he was still improving. And to me, if I'm Sean Marks and I'm building this roster, I have to have a spot for him. I don't know if Killian Hayes has a spot. He hasn't played yet in the preseason. But there's no upside to, and I'm not killing Killian Hayes. As someone who's played basketball as a non-scoring point guard, I appreciate what Killian Hayes does. But there's no upside. He's not going to improve. He is what he is. He's a backup point guard who can run the point and can't score. Right? Like, that's what he is. So we're not trying to win. If we were trying to win this year, and you said, who's more valuable to winning just this year? The answer might be Killian Hayes. But you're saying, who can we develop here? Who can we develop into a really good NBA player? Killian Hayes or Bailey? To me, that's Bailey in a blowout.
I don't. When you're going over age, obviously you're going to say Bailey. But this guy Killian Hayes, he's only 23 years old, right? He has 4 years to get it together. He was a great on-ball defender, great passer. It's not that crazy to say, like, you know what, this guy winds up working on his shot and he winds up being like an average shooter at some point in the next 3 years. I don't think that's crazy. And looking at like raw talent as of this very moment, if you add on, let's say Amari Bailey gets a little bit better or better in his game, but you have Killian Hayes adding a shot, I think I would take Killian Hayes. But obviously, this is not the case. This is just a hypothetical. But I think you make an argument for both.
To me, okay. Killian Hayes has been in the league, 4 years? He just finished his rookie. So he's been 4. This is his 5th year in the league. This will be his 5th year. And his offensive game, his ability to score, hasn't gotten any better. Right, like it's not like he's progressed and he's added shots and he's getting better. It's still as bad as when he was a rookie. And I think there's a role in the NBA for Killian Hayes on a good team. I think he could play backup point guard minutes throughout the season. I just don't see how that's going to benefit the Nets this year. Like, I mean, I would rather take a shot with an all-world athlete like Amari Bailey, who already has developed offensive game.
All-world though,
as an athlete. I'm saying Amari Bailey as an athlete is a really, really high level athlete. How that translates to him as a scorer in the NBA is yet to be determined. But what I'm saying is the athleticism I see in Amari Bailey is special.
That's fair. Like, that's fair. I think you're sleeping on Killian Hayes a little bit And keep in mind, there's a reason why this dude was drafted 7th overall. Has he gotten better? You're right. There is an issue there. He has not gotten better. 210 games. He's shooting 38% from the field, 27% from three. He does shoot 77% from the free throw line. And there's always that adage that if you're a good free throw shooter in college, pre-NBA, that usually can translate into someone being at least an average, shooter. We have not seen that yet, but that does tell me that there is something there untapped.
So if you were Sean Marks, and I asked you one last roster spot, we need to keep one more guard, Killian Hayes or Bailey. You're keeping Killian Hayes?
If you told me that we're gonna lose, okay. So this is how
for this team, yeah.
I was gonna say, obviously, we're like you mentioned before, we talked about this. We're not gonna win this year. So if you're asking me who do I think is the long-term bet, I'd probably go with Bailey, even though I think you have Killian Hayes with some talent in other roles and whatnot that he could possibly fill. That might be beneficial for the Nets. I think on defense he's a lot better, obviously, but passing a lot better. But if I'm looking at this in a long-term view, of course I'm going to go with Bailey out of the age, even though I think there may be at this moment more talent in Killian Hayes.
I wanted to ask this question to you too, a little bit off topic, but to start the second half, the Nets went with Zaire Williams, and Simmons didn't come out to start the second half. So they had Cam Johnson, DFS, Zaire Williams, Cam Thomas, and Dennis Schroeder. So Cam, Schroeder, DFS, and Zaire. I like that. It's small, but it's athletic, and you got your shooters in. I mean, you're not going to start with that team or close with that team, but how do you feel about that lineup for, segments of the game, using that for 5-10 minutes throughout a game?
Who is it? Say it again. What was the lineup?
Cam Thomas and Schroeder, and then DFS, Cam Johnson, and then Zaire playing an undersized center.
Jesus. I don't like it. I don't like it. Right. Only with center. Only with the center position. I would get rid of one of CJ Dorian Finney-Smith and have another big man in there. But I like the look of it in little spurts, I guess. I could see plenty of times that matchup wise that lineup would play very good for the Nets, right? I think the Nets are experimenting, trying to see what they have. And I know you like it. I'm a little against it just because I think size is coming back in the NBA. But there are plenty of matchups that you could see this lineup succeeding. That's how I would say my take.
It's definitely small, right? But Zaire is what, 6'9", 6'10", so he's not that small.
Yep.
And then Dorian Finney-Smith is strong, and he plays like a power forward, right? So I get it's small, but I don't feel like you're dangerously undersized at that point. But I do agree with your point that, and I like it. I like that size is coming back. I think you're right about that, and I think that's a good thing. Another thing I was Noah Clowney ended up with 11 points, and it made it look easy in his few minutes that he was actually out there. Is Noah Clowney a guy in your estimation that you can design plays for and that you can set up plays for to get him points? Because he seems to score really efficiently without them, really running any plays through him. And he still seems to get his points. What are your thoughts on Noah Clowney being used more, running plays through Noah Clowney?
I definitely think that you could design plays for him. I'm very big on Clowney, actually. I think that he might be, in my opinion, I'm looking at this roster right now. He's probably if I had a starting lineup of my liking, he would be my second option or even third option, probably closer to third. But hell yeah, I would run plays for him for sure. I think he's very talented. I think you're going to see him in the point forward role, especially with Big Ben being hurt, with Sharp being hurt. You automatically, I would love to see Clowney at power forward, but automatically because of these injuries, you're going to see him a lot more at center. Maybe that's good for his development. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. But you could definitely run plays for him in my mind.
You said I want to touch on that. You said in your if Pete was Jordy Fernandez, you would have Clowney in your rotation or your starting rotation.
Correct.
Pete, I've just given you Jordy Fernandez's job. What is your starting? Assuming Claxton's healthy, you can use Claxton, you can use Sharp. Those guys are Sharp's not healthy, so put Sharp out for a minute. But Claxton is healthy. Give me Coach Pete's starting five.
I'm gonna go with Clax. I'm gonna go with Clowney. Those would be my two big men. Man, am I? You know, it's my mind is all messed up because I could go about this saying, do I want there to be development? Do I want to win? Because those are two different lineups. But I'm just gonna have fun with this, okay? I would say Schroeder, CT, and then at small forward is my issue in that my mind is telling me that it's going to be probably should be Dorian Finney-Smith, but if I was Jordy or Coach Pete of the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, I would like to see Jalen Wilson actually play in there. But that's me wanting to, say, okay, we're going to develop these guys. If I was going for a win, I'm going with Dorian Finney-Smith.
I agree with you. So you're using Ben Simmons off the bench regardless, correct?
Absolutely.
Like okay. I don't mind that. I don't think he's gonna like that. Former All NBA player, two-time. I don't think but I agree with you. I'm using him off the bench too. I may close with him honestly because I do like him on the court to close the game because he offers you a lot. But I'm not starting him. I agree.
Let me get. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let me get this off pretty quick. I think Clax and him, Ben Simmons, play the same role on offense. Yeah. So I don't like doubling up on that. There are ways that you can make it work, don't get me wrong, but that's my thinking behind that.
I agree with you. That they fill a lot of the same space. But like I said, look, Jordy Fernandez, it's a new system, it's a new offense, it's a new team. Can he get these two guys to work together? Right? I remember 2 years ago or 3 years ago when the Celtics lost to the Nets, the team with KD and Kyrie, whatever, that was 2021, so 3 years ago. They were saying that Tatum and Jaylen Brown couldn't work together. You had to trade one of them because they were too similar. Obviously, that went out the window, right? So, is there a way that Jordy Fernandez can kind of maximize this and get get Claxton and Simmons on the court together in a way that doesn't completely stagnate your offense?
Say that again. You broke up.
Is there a way that Jordy Fernandez can use Claxton and Simmons on the court together that doesn't completely stagnate your offense? Is there a way that he can make this work to a degree? Because defensively, it's going to be good. But offensively, can he use those two guys together in any way that doesn't make your offense slow and sluggish?
Absolutely, 100%. Because you have Clax and Ben Simmons being able to take it up the court. Clax could dribble a little better than people think. I think Clax may be able to finally have consistent looks from three. You could put him in the corner. You could do inverted pick and rolls. There's a lot of little things that they could do. So is it possible? Yes, absolutely. I can see a great scenario that it works out well, but I think it's very clunky, and it's going to take a lot of ironing out, in my personal opinion. Maybe they already have worked on stuff like that. I don't know. But to answer your question, yes, it's possible, but I think it's unlikely. But I do think we see it during the season.
We're gonna see it. I mean, how much we see it depends on how good or bad it looks. But yeah, he's definitely gonna try because, like I said, you want your five best players on the court together. You made an interesting point about Jalen Wilson and how you want to see more of Jalen Wilson. And this is why I opened up with it's important for Dorian Finney-Smith and for the Brooklyn Nets that they move Dorian Finney-Smith because I want to give those minutes to Jalen Wilson, right? Like, and if DFS is on the team, you got to play DFS. And look, I said, Harden asked for a trade, you traded him. Kyrie asked for a trade, you traded him. Dorian Finney-Smith has been a good net. He works hard. He does exactly what you ask him to do. He hasn't complained about being on a tanking team, right? Like, if you're gonna do anyone a favor, if you're gonna do anyone a solid, can't you trade DFS to a competitive team? Like, for DFS sake, but also for the sake of Jalen Wilson and getting Jalen Wilson those minutes.
I did a podcast with Jay from BK. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. He thought he was getting traded to Dallas during Finney-Smith. He's going to get traded eventually, I think. I think he's a lot easier to trade than CJ. But the way that he's playing, if he keeps this up, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he's going to get traded. I just think you're going to have to wait for a little while. I like that Dorian Finney-Smith can play so many roles defensively. He could probably guard 1 through 4, maybe even like a small ball 5. You could see him defending. I don't love him at power forward, to be honest, but I think he'd be great at playing for the Nets at small forward.
I'm with you on that. And for those who don't know, I'll link your podcast to. I'll add your because that was a great podcast. His trade to Dallas, back to Dallas. For those who don't know, can you just walk us through what happened there and what he was told, so that people know what you're talking about?
All right, so we're taking this back last year around the All-Star break, not the All-Star break, around the trade deadline. He was told, Dorian Finney-Smith was told he was getting traded. His agent was told he was getting traded. If you guys remember, he got injured, quote unquote injured, a couple of days before the trade deadline, and the Nets just sat him, completely sat him. He didn't play again until the game right after the trade deadline. Not even like this guy's progressing. No, we just came straight back. I sat behind the Nets bench that game. He was yucking it up with the Mavericks at halftime. Pete, these guys are friends. That's gonna happen. Dorian Finney-Smith is from Dallas. He was very happy to be told that he was getting traded back there. For some reason, something happened. I don't know if the Nets pulled out. I don't know if Dallas pulled out. I don't know. Something happened, obviously, and he wound up staying with the Nets. But there was a lot of miscommunication over there, and Dorian wants out for sure. And I think he deserves, like you said, I think he deserves a trade, hopefully to a team that leaves him closer to his family.
Yeah, like I said, I love Dorian Finney-Smith. I love what he's done for us, and I love the player that he is. So, like, let's do right by him, because he's done right by us. Of all the players, who we've traded upon request, like let's show that respect to DFS. And it also behooves us to give Jalen Wilson those minutes, because Jalen Wilson, I hope, or it looks like, may be part of the future long term, where Dorian Finney-Smith obviously is not going to be here long term. So it makes sense for both parties to amicably split. And I'm not saying trade Finney-Smith because I don't want him. I love having Finney-Smith. It's just, he'd be better off somewhere else, and we could give those minutes to Jalen Wilson. The last thing I wanted to ask you about was, tomorrow, the Nets are right back against Philly. They're playing, correct? It's Philly? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. Or was it Toronto or Philly? One of the two. I may be wrong. You might be right.
Yeah. Let me look it up. I thought it was preseason schedule.
You might definitely be right. I'm definitely.
Yeah, it's Philly tomorrow, and then Friday is Toronto.
I told you it was Philly. Why do you think it was Toronto?
those are the two games they got left. But what do you want to look for? What are you looking for? What do you want to see in that preseason game? No Embiid. Embiid's not playing, but what do you want to see in that preseason game against Philly?
Great question. I don't know if they've announced this yet, but I need to see Clax at point forward. I need to see how that looks. I want to see if he could run the offense effectively. I want to see the chemistry with him and the rest of the starting lineup, especially him and CT is very important. They already had chemistry from last year. I'm not concerned about it, but I want to see if there's any growth upon that. I want to see Ben Simmons continue playing well without getting hurt. And I want to continue to see the bench, and I want to see these guys keep on growing. You know what I mean? This is a rebuild. It's preseason. I'm looking to see what people added to their game what roles they're going to be next year. And I'm looking at Jordy in particular and seeing how he moves the chess pieces along the board during the game.
Yeah, I want to see Claxton. They say he's going to play at least one preseason game. I don't know if that's going to be this game or the Toronto game, but they say he's going to play one. So I want to see him on the court. And I know this is going to sound. I do want to see him on the court with Simmons. I want to see what Jordy is thinking there. I know it might look ugly and it might clog things up, but I want to see what Jordy's vision is. And I want to see more Shake Milton. I'm excited to see Shake Milton play. It was a guy that was just kind of a throw-in at the trade. It was rumored the Nets actually wanted Deuce McAllister, and the Knicks wouldn't pull him.
Deuce McBride.
Deuce McAllister's a running back.
Deuce McAllister trade.
I do that all the time. So I'm gonna call him Deuce McAllister. When I say I mean Deuce McBride, and I'm gonna call Ace Bailey. I just did it again, and I'm gonna call Amari Bailey Ace Bailey too, just to put that out there. The Nets wanted Deuce McBride, and they ended up getting Milton. But Milton looked really, really good to me. So I want to see Milton again, and I want to see Simmons and Claxton on the court together just to see what it looks like under Jordy Fernandez's vision. And I want to ask you this, right? Like the over-under on the Nets win total is 18.5, 19, depending on the book that you look at, which is the lowest in the NBA. It's the lowest in several years. If the Nets just go out and compete, and guys like Zaire and Clowney and Claxton, and they all just play hard every day with their kind of natural talent and athleticism, is this a team that can be sneaky good? I mean, are we looking at a team that may start the season just off energy, just off effort, and the athleticism and size they have? Is this a team that can kind of steal games? Like, is it possible they're not as bad as they're being made out to be?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think coaching is so important in the NBA. Talent obviously is the key. Talent is king. But people forget a good coach can win you an additional 5 to 10 games a year. And I think if you take Jordy, replace him, replace Jacque Vaughn with Jordy last year, and I think this team will add on 5 to 10 wins. I'd even say 10 wins, to be honest. The players are definitely all bought in. I don't know if that's going to continue. You know, when losses pile up, attitudes change. It's not all happy-go-lucky. But, man, Jordy so far, A++.
I agree. And so is that a good thing or a bad thing? I know the Nets want the number one pick and Cooper and Ace and is it a good thing? And is it kind of like San Antonio 2 years ago when they wanted Wembanyama, got off to a quick start and they had to kind of reel it back in? Is that something the Nets are going to have to do? Are they going to have to say, okay, we're winning here, so we're going to give Tyrese Martin some minutes. We're going to give Keon Johnson some minutes. Like, is that something they're going to have to do to not try to lose games, but to try to not win that? You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
For the overall direction of the franchise, you want to get the best draft pick possible. Having a good coach like this can derail that a little bit. Overall, I think as the season goes on, you're going to have injuries. And let's face it, like the Nets are in the middle of a game of Jenga. If the CT block gets pulled out, the house of cards are just going to fall. The blocks are just going to crumble down, and you're going to be looking at like a 15-win team at best. So I don't think you have too much to worry about. I think you worry about Ben Simmons playing really. Somehow Ben Simmons shocks everybody and plays, he's not going to be an all-star this year, right? But if he plays going all out, trying his best, the Nets could win, with a healthy roster, without trading any of the vets. Nets could win 20 games, 25 games. I don't think that's out of the question. I really don't.
25 is the number. Like 18 is really, really bad, right? And I know I always go over on the Nets, but 25 is kind of the number I had in my mind. Like I think they're going to win about 25 games this year.
I don't think that's crazy thing about it at all, especially if you take in, what if CT adds to his game, right? Yeah. CT becomes an all-star. Then you have Ben playing, I don't know, like 75% of his former self, not all-star level, but, he's playing well. He's competing. The Nets offense is looking well. You have other teams tanking themselves. You have like the Wizards, right? At this point, I feel this is a really hot take. I feel comfortable saying that I don't think the Nets are going to be the worst team in basketball. If
I think we saw that in Washington. Yes, I think we saw the worst team in basketball yesterday in Washington.
Yeah, it's just preseason, right? So we got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yep.
But the way that I see them buying in, and if they don't make any trades, I really don't see this team being the worst.
I tend to agree, which is why I think it's important to make these trades. Again, I don't think it's going to be as easy as people think it's going to be to trade Cam. I do think that you could trade Dorian Finney-Smith tomorrow if you wanted to.
By the way, CJ is going to be a big problem. He's
you're going to have to take
years left.
Yeah,
3 years at $20 million. Sorry to interrupt you. That's going to be a pain in the butt.
I tend to agree with you. Like the fact that he's still here, like to me, speaks volumes. I didn't like that contract when they gave it to him. I thought they overpaid him. I'm not a Cam Johnson fan, and I don't think it's going to be super easy to trade him unless you want to take on another bad contract, which you don't want to do. But Pete, totally appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your time. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Thanks for having me on again, Gary. You guys can follow me at NetFriendsYouKnow on Twitter, at NetFriendsYouKnow on YouTube. I drop episodes pretty much every week. I have different guests on, either different Nets content creators, like I said, former players, credentialed media, insiders, sports analysts, and all that good stuff. Check it out. If you like it, subscribe, and make sure you subscribe and leave a like for this video for Gary.
Appreciate you, Pete. From Texas to the world, thank you, and God bless.